Isn't your ass getting tired? This was a question a coach asked me not too long ago during a session when I was hemming and hawing about making a big decision, and I had been hemming and hawing about making this big decision for years. And her question was, isn't your ass getting tired of sitting on the fence? And today I want to talk about your own version of sitting on the fence. Most specifically, maybe you're sitting on the fence around whether to stay or go in an unfulfilling relationship or marriage. Maybe your version of sitting on the fence is asking yourself, I really want to find somebody to share my life with. You've probably made some really poor choices in the love department. Maybe you exited a long-term relationship or marriage to a narcissistic partner. Maybe you've made some more unhealthy dating choices since leaving that big relationship, and you've probably lost a lot of faith in yourself. What I often find with a lot of people after specifically narcissistic abuse is that they live in this pocket of conflict of sitting on the fence. And today I want to talk to you about why that is such an exhausting, debilitating, frustrating place to live that really hamstrings your own growth and potential, specifically in relationships and learning how to have healthy romantic relationships. There's something called in psychology, especially in childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences. These are things like growing up with a parent who is incarcerated, witnessing domestic violence, having a parent who is emotionally invalidating or unavailable, having a parent who is an addict, having a mentally ill parent. And research shows that the more ACEs you have, meaning it leads to a more pronounced shape and trajectory of your life as an adult. It impacts your physical health. More adverse childhood experiences actually shorten your lifespan, and they detrimentally impact the quality of your relationships, not just romantic relationships, but generally like your working relationships, your friendships, the relationships with your family, the relationship with yourself. What is not often talked about enough is the counter opposite of adverse childhood experiences, which are renewed or positive childhood experiences, which are experiences that you might have, like having a teacher who really sees your potential and believes in you. If you have absent parents, maybe it's a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle who steps in to give you that guidance, or maybe it's a mentor, or if you had a big brother or big sister. What does this have to do with your love life? If you have had bad experiences in the love department where you were betrayed over and over again, those leave a mark. But the thing that is shown in research and proven in studies to heal relational trauma the most is healthy relationships, and not just fast forwarding and jumping into a healthy romantic relationship. That's often not the sequence that this happens, although it can be. Healthy relationships, meaning how are you with yourself, right? What happens when we exit unhealthy relationships is that we adopt unhealthy coping to manage our fear and our past trauma and the uncertainty and the anxiety that we continue to live in every single day. And so one of the ways that this will manifest is saying, and part of you knowing, that you want a healthy relationship, but you continue to date and stay too long with emotionally inconsistent or unavailable people. Essentially, you're trying not to get abandoned again while you're essentially still abandoning yourself in the dating process. There are things that we do inadvertently to try and maintain connection that are really self-abandoning in the process and that drain our energy. And you can't be your fullest version of yourself, your most expressed version of yourself, your most honest, calm, emotionally regulated version of yourself when in other areas of your life, you're giving away your power and you're draining your own energy. So the first step that often needs to take place is learning boundaries, learning how to recognize faster when you're trespassing your own boundaries, learning how to stop living in fight or flight mode, and slowing down, feeling comfortable with slowing down, feeling comfortable with relaxing and not feeling guilt or as much guilt, or not believing that things aren't going to get done if you take a few days off or a week off. So these are some of the ways that you can start bridging that gap with a relationship with yourself and essentially creating positive experiences that counter some of the trauma that you've experienced inside of a romantic relationship. So the question I want to leave you with today is it your ass getting tired of sitting on that fence? Aren't you tired of talking about your narcissistic ex-husband and it's been years since you've divorced? Aren't you tired of talking about how there aren't any available people in your area when that very well could be a belief or a statement that you're saying to actually protect yourself from actually finding somebody who is emotionally available? If you've had narcissistic abuse in your life, the thing that we're often most afraid of is actually what we really want. Because when you have relationship trauma, there's this thing that happens like around being happy and around joy. You are always waiting for the next bad thing to happen, for the next shoe to drop. I've seen this a lot in women I've worked with. They get into a respectful, healthy relationship with a high quality person, and in the back of their mind, they're still waiting for the rug to be pulled out from underneath them because that nervous system conditioning is still in there a little bit. And it takes time and consistency and learning how to communicate through conflict and emotional regulation over time to undo that all of the way. So are you tired of telling yourself, I want this, and then years go by and nothing is really happening? In order to have, and this is true for anything, in order to have something that you've never had before, and if you're watching this and you can honestly say, I've never really had a healthy, respectful, romantic relationship. I've always been like the leader in the relationship, or I'm always like the more emotionally intelligent and mature person in my romantic relationships. I don't know what it feels like to have an equal. That's perfectly fine. It also means that if you've never had something that you really want, you have to become that version of you before you have it. You have to rise into a new version of yourself. Like, not a new version. The version of you is already there. It's like we have to uncover the ways and clear off the ways, like clearing cobwebs off of a lens of the ways that you are inadvertently holding yourself back from that. Because I can tell you, it is not dating apps. It is not the city you live in. It is not your age. It is not your crow's feet. It is not your belly fat. It is none of that. It is all you and what you are doing to protect yourself from being hurt again. So if this resonated for you, maybe ruffled your feathers a little bit, then I invite you to take the next step. I have a free training that walks you through. This is especially for you if you feel like you've healed after narcissistic abuse, you've had therapy, you've been to years of therapy, all about your attachment style, all about, like, you've read Why Does He Do That by Lindy Bancroft. Like, you've done all this stuff, and yet you keep finding that you're making the same choices in relationships. This class teaches you the 5 shifts you need to make in your own psychology and the actions you need to be making to start correcting that pattern. You can go to BethanyDotson.com/training for that. And then if you're ready to have an honest conversation about what's possible for you when you get out of your own way, what kind of a relationship do you really want to have? Maybe you're in something right now. Should I stay? Should I go? Like, if you're ready to have a breakthrough in your thinking and also explore if we're a possible fit to work together, then you can go to BethanyDotson.com/talk, and we'll have a very honest, gently confronting, eye-opening, and inspiring conversation about transforming your life. I'll see you on the next episode.